Well, welcome to the Business Spotlight series. My name is Tanner O'Brien. I'm a senior partner here at Action Coach in Central Texas, and I'm sitting down today with Jason Bohrer, who is the president and CEO of Sentry Interactive. Excited to be jumping into some conversation here about business, about entrepreneurship, about Sentry Interactive, about kind of all these fun things that our business community just loves to have some conversation around. So, Jason, I appreciate you taking the time to be here with me today to have some conversation to really dive into this stuff. If we could, let's just start with a little bit of background. Let's do maybe just a 10,000 foot view. If you would give us just kind of the overview of who you are and your background, and tell us what is Sentry Interactive.
Very good. Well, thank you, Tanner. It's great to be here. So, as you mentioned, Jason Bohrer, I'm the president and CEO of Sentry Interactive, but I've been in the technology space pretty much since I got out of school. So, for the last 30 years or so, have spent some significant stints at companies like Motorola, a company called HID Global, which is also based here in the Austin area. Spent a stint more recently at a company called CPI Card Group, but I've been now at Sentry for about the last 2 years or so. Right. So Sentry is based in the technology space as well, predominantly in the security space. A big focus on mobile access control, as well as how that plays into a variety of different environments in the commercial space.
Very cool. Absolutely love it. I'm excited to kind of dive into some details and kind of break into that a little bit. But before we do, I always love to just kind of set the stage for the viewers. We have the opportunity to talk to so many different sizes, scopes, variations of businesses in different stages of their growth cycle, that sort of thing. So I always like to ask, just generally speaking, from a ownership structure standpoint. And by this, I mean, are you a sole owner, founder? Are there business partners? Is there outside investors in the business? Kind of what does that look like for y'all? Because I know that will help kind of frame the reference for how we go through some of the questions here today.
Okay. Yeah. So in terms of our structure is our chairman of the board, which is our founder, a gentleman by the name of Joe Caldwell, was the founder of the company, but we're actually a spinoff of a smart parking company called Municipal Parking Services, which is actually based in Minneapolis, Minnesota. But Sentry was spun off roughly about 2 years ago. We've got kind of a unique backing as we've got close to 400 individual private investors, high net worth type individuals that back both MPS as well as Sentry. When we look at how our path is going to look like moving forward, is we believe that we can probably get there with a lot of the investors that we have today.
Beautiful. I love that. And that gives some really good context for kind of where y'all are at in business and what that looks like. I always like to ask just, some general questions around kind of your role in the business. So president and CEO, give us kind of the context of what that looks like for you in the business today. Because I know for a just very new startup business, that role may take on a very different meaning than a business that's been around for 30 years. So what does that look like for you? What does your role look like within the business?
So as you might expect with CEO titles, it's everything from the front of the business all the way to the back. But I spend my time with our management team, really managing all aspects of the business, right? So a lot of time in a startup, specifically not only with customers, but with our investor base as well. So the majority of my time typically is with customers or investors. But as we begin to scale, then some of those other functional areas are going to become equally as important, right? So how we fulfill product, how we service the customer once they do become engaged with the business, as well as finance, HR, all of the other various functional groups that you're going to have in a more mature business. Those will begin to take on more importance as we begin to grow.
Excellent. It's a very well way to state some of that and share with us here. So let's talk about the business and kind of what makes it so special. The amazing things that I know y'all are up to over there. But I always like to ask the first question on kind of generally speaking, who does the business serve? And my favorite way to kind of just frame this up is, if I'm in the audience, I'm watching this video, I'm listening to the audio of this later on. How would I know that either I'm a really good fit to come, look at the products and services that y'all have, or I might know somebody that would be a good fit? Help kind of paint the picture of what that looks like for the market that y'all serve.
Sure, sure. So, typically for the most part, we serve the commercial space, right? And when you look at kind of the commercial space over the last 24 to 36 months, since post-pandemic type time frame, it's probably never been a more complex environment than it is today, right? You're dealing with a hybrid work environment where people want to come into the office on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and coincidentally work from home on Monday and Friday. So how do you begin to manage those assets in an environment like that? They're faced with inflationary pressure that they haven't really seen probably in the last 40 years or so. So costs are going up from every angle. They're trying to deploy new technology into an environment that resonates with their employee base. And along with that is what we do play in the security space, is making sure that your work environment is safe and secure is always paramount. Right. So when you begin to kind of bundle all of those things together, that's where we believe we have opportunities to serve the end user customers, which are typically large kind of multinational type companies, down to small to medium sized businesses across the US and the broader globe. There's an opportunity to really kind of begin to refine what that experience looks like. Right. So for us, our focus is primarily around visitor management and employee access in and out of a building. Right. In the past, a lot of employees might have carried around a physical card or credential with their name on it and their picture on it, which allows them to get in and out of the building. But in today's environment, really most employees want to carry everything on their phone, right? So that transition that you might see, let's say in the payment space, where people are carrying around their physical debit or credit card, and now a lot of that's been transitioned over to the phone. The same thing is going on in the access control environment. So we focused around how we enable our technology in a way that's a little bit unique. There's a variety of different providers out there that provide mobile access control. Our approach to the market is we have a readerless approach, right? So you have the ability to go in and download our software. It's a software-based approach to mobile access control that enables you to get to mobility in the quickest possible fashion at the best price point as well.
I love that. I was going to ask some questions about it, but I think the explanation that you gave actually really simplified and laid it out there. And I'm curious for where y'all are at in business. Are you at a point where you've got customers and using the service? Are you still pre-revenue at this point, developing? Where are y'all at in that sort of phase?
Yeah, I mean, we're actively out there selling. We do have a number of different installations, both here in the States as well as the UK. We have concentrations in those two locales at this stage, but I would say we were probably between 100 and 200 customers at this stage, continue to pull in more people every day. And in our market it is a somewhat mature market. So there's a variety of paths to the end user. So there's a number of different players within the value chain that we can either go and have conversations directly with end users. It could be, a university or college that's looking to try and move their student population over to mobility, where we might be having a direct conversation with them. But we're also talking to a variety of different, what we call channel partners, right? So those individual companies that actually install security systems, where they distribute products that go into security systems, as we're having conversations with them as well.
Beautiful. So as you continue to grow the customer base, what's been the maybe the biggest challenge that you've noticed, your team has noticed in continuing to grow and scale from where we are today, especially given where post pandemic, some slowdown of things potentially here this year economically. Have y'all noticed kind of some challenges and some constraints happening at this point, and how have you handled them if so?
Sure. I mean, for us, and I think this probably holds true for most startups, is in the beginning is you're always fighting for awareness, right? The fact that you're out there. So I think we spend a lot of our time around how we make sure that we build our brand and our presence in the market space. And I think for us specifically is the security market can be very risk averse, right? Is embracing new technologies and new approaches to managing the business. Is they want to make sure that any new technology is fully vetted before they begin to deploy that in scale, right? And so for us, initially is it's cultivating some of these initial opportunities, making sure that they're successful, that they can become a reference point for us to go have additional conversations with new customers moving forward. But the security space is not one of those where they flip on a dime and immediately they're embracing things in volume, right? Is it's something that you have to go prove yourself. So we're still very much kind of in that tire kicking stage here at Sentry. But I think that people see the value and the approach that we have. There really is no other company that I've seen out there that has a software-based approach that is first to mobility the way that we do, with the look and feel of some of the devices that we do offer in the market. So I think we have something unique, but we have to get past this initial pilot and tire kicking stage.
Mm. I love this is a perfect segue because I always love to ask a few questions around just the topic of marketing, especially for most businesses out there. It's an area that it's vital to every business. However, it's not always the one that business owners just connect with and start getting really doing well at it from day one. So I like to just find out what successful businesses are doing, find out what other businesses are doing in different industries, things like that. So when it comes to just that general awareness, marketing, getting the word out there, starting to get into this tire kicking phase, that sort of thing, what has been y'all's philosophy around marketing for the business?
Sure. I mean, and when you begin to talk about marketing and kind of pull the rug back, there are a lot of different approaches and elements that you have to consider, right? So I think for most startups is typically their budget or funds available to marketing is somewhat limited, so they have to be strategic around where they spend those dollars. But in today's age, having a robust digital strategy around how you build brand awareness and make sure that you get your name out there is important, right? So the digital approach is something that's probably first and foremost for most startups. But there's a lot of different elements relative to building brand. In our industry, we spend a lot of time nurturing relationships. It's still very much a relationship-built business. They want to make sure that you understand what you're talking about. Security domain can be somewhat specific to a number of different technologies, whether it's access control or video, cryptography, all sorts of things that you have to consider when you begin to deploy a security system. So I think leveraging those relationships, and as we begin to think about talent and how we bring people into the business, is finding those individuals that have all of the soft skills that you're looking for, but can also get down and talk about the bits and bytes within a security system, as it's important that they have both.
Mm. I love that. And you mentioned digital strategy being kind of an important piece and having that be fairly robust today. And I 100% agree with it. Digital also is kind of it's a broad term anymore with all the different variations that we can do digitally. Are there any channels that you've found or seen more success in versus others when it comes to digital?
I mean, each kind of have their own merits. And we have a large kind of email outreach campaign just to build brand awareness and get the brand out there, which has been successful. It's brought us a number of opportunities, although they might be more kind of on the small to medium side of the scale. It helps us knock down the wins, right? In those reference cases that I was talking about a second ago. I think a lot of the larger, let's say Fortune 50, Fortune 500 type companies, they're probably not going to go out and buy something based on an email, right? And that's where having relationships across the channel, right, and being able to espouse how you're different and talk about the technical specifications within your offering to the point you can reinforce the fact that you can support their needs at that level. That's a different type of sale, right? So when we begin to think about whether it's digital or a trade show or pulling people together as part of a consultants roundtable per se, those types of things are equally important as you try and knock down these larger opportunities to go along with building the base of all these small to medium-sized opportunities as well.
Mm. So when it comes to just sales in general, especially being more in a tire kicker phase, I imagine that that's layered with general objections and things like that as people are learning and finding value in the services and things like that. Any tips or suggestions for business owners out there that are kind of building their sales system, their sales funnel, working with their sales team on just some best practices to, overcome objections, to really provide value and help, solve the challenges and the issues that the prospect has.
Sure.
Kind of any words of wisdom or advice that you've experienced that would be helpful for the audience.
Sure. I mean, inherently, whether it's security business or any other type of business, you have to be creating value for the end user, right? So when I step back and look at our business specifically, is we really focus around that value creation, and it takes the form a lot of times of potential cost reduction, right? As I mentioned earlier, is they're dealing in an environment of increased costs from every angle, including wage rates. They're trying to digitize their landscape as best as possible, and move into a platform that they know that they can count on for the future. So for us, we very much try and hit on those pain points that end users are experiencing today, right? And nothing better than to be able to talk to the return on investment that they're going to get whenever they do buy your product, right? So from a technology standpoint, anything that you can do to help provide that ROI in today's environment, it just makes the sale that much easier.
Mm. I love that. So when it comes to team, talking a little bit about some strategies, some ideas that can help a team continue to grow and develop. But I always love just to ask about team in general, right? So first kind of piece of this is leadership. You've been in various roles as you continue to grow in your career until, over the last 30 years or so in technology. Has your leadership style changed over the years, and kind of what does that look like today versus what it was maybe 20 years ago?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think as you develop over the course of your career, is I think you have to be able to adapt a little bit based on the role that you're in, right? So when you start out earlier in your career, you might have a very defined area of responsibility, and you focus on being successful in that area. But as you continue to take on more responsibility, you do have to begin to adapt. You have to recognize, I think, where your company is at in the paradigm of their ecosystem, right? So when I look at a startup atmosphere, the type of leader that I need to be might be very different than a company that's been around for 200 years, right? That's very mature, that has established methods in terms of how they go to market. They have a lot of brand recognition. In our domain is you have to be some days that transformational leader where you're espousing what the vision of the company is going to look like. But at the same time is you better be ready to roll up your shirt sleeves and grab the shovel and get to work and do some of the tactical items that a normal CEO doesn't do in a larger company, right? So I think it very much depends on the situation that you're in, but you need to be able to adapt to whatever's required for the business.
I love that. When you look at building team, and especially in today's marketplace, that things have shifted a little bit over the last couple years, in how we usually approach and hire and retain team members, that sort of thing. What has been kind of your philosophy around attracting the type of talent that you want for the team to continue to grow the business in the way that the business needs to grow?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, outside of maybe customer acquisition, there's probably not a more important aspect of managing, a business outside of talent, acquisition. So I think understanding the requirements of the role, understanding again, the hard skills, I think for me are table stakes, right? Do they have the capability to do the job? It's very much about fit, right? And the soft skills that individual brings to the table, whether I'm hiring for the lowest level position within the company, or you're trying to hire and build out part of the C-suite. You have to take into account the capabilities for each of those roles. And everybody wants level A players across the board. And that might be the case. You're able to fill a lot of those roles, but those level A players are also going to want to grow quickly, right? So you have to have a path mapped out for them, so that they continue to enjoy working for the company at the end of the day.
Mm. Very valuable piece of nugget there. And for those that need to hear that again, pause this, rewind it, listen to it. The path, A players, all of that kind of stuff, really important. But Jason, we've covered a ton of ground so far here today, and I do want to be respectful of our time. So I've got a couple rapid fire questions. I'd love to kind of start moving into kind of wrapping up our conversation here today, and then we'll finish out with one final question. But for these rapid fire, there's four of them here. I know we probably could go a little bit deeper on each one of them, but we'll do kind of more top head answers for each of them here today. First one, what is your key to success?
I mean, for me, is you work very hard, to complete a project, acquire a customer. It can be tiresome over time, right? So I think celebrating those wins is important, especially in a startup, right? Because you are fighting about all the things that we talked about. But being able to celebrate your wins and move on to the next one, I think is a key element of my approach on life.
Phenomenal. What is one piece of advice that you would give to other business owners or executives?
I mean, most people, if you've been around long enough, you're going to experience some type of setback in your career, whether it's a customer, whether it's a position, whether it's a given company that you've been working on. But I think being able to step back and look at the larger picture, right, and continue to come back every day, ready to fight. I think that's something that everybody needs to have as part of their DNA, because you're going to have those setbacks, right? It's how you respond to those setbacks. Really, what the difference between somebody that's going to be successful and somebody that might not be. So being willing to come to work every single day.
Excellent. What's one book that you're either reading now or have read most recently?
Yeah, so I've just started a book called Churchill's Secret Messenger, which is about an individual female named Rose that was parachuted into France to be part of the French resistance during World War II. So I'm only about a quarter of the way into the book, so I can't give you too many details more than that. But it seems very interesting at this stage. I typically, I don't mind the occasional self-improvement book. But typically when I do have time to go read outside of work and kids and family, as it's typically more of a fiction-based novel, but this one's got some nonfiction weaved in, so it's a nice. We'll see where it goes, but it seems entertaining so far.
Very cool. I love it. And final rapid fire questions, kind of a fun one that I love to just kind of ask everyone here. If you had, the ability to take some magic dust and apply it anywhere in your business that you could, wake up tomorrow morning and your business was improved overnight, where would you take that magic dust and put it in the business?
Yeah, I mean, again, coming back to startup, is it's all about speed, but it's also about breadth, right? I would love to have a ton more resources in every of the functional groups that we have. We've got a nice foothold in a couple of different regions across the globe. I know that our portfolio would resonate around the entire globe, right? So I think getting to scale where we have the ability to address the global market is really where we want to get to.
Excellent. Absolutely love it. Before we get to the final question that we'll wrap up on here today, for those that are watching and want to connect with you, to follow the amazing stuff that y'all are doing, to learn more about Sentry Interactive, the work that y'all are doing there, where can we advise them to go for more information and to connect and follow and all of that fun stuff?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, a website, so it's www.centuryinteractive.com, right? So that's probably the best first spot. You can also find me on LinkedIn, typically, right? So Jason Bohrer on LinkedIn. More than happy to connect through that medium as well.
Beautiful. For those that are watching, I'll put it all in the video description below. So as soon as we wrap up here, make sure that you go and click the links, check out the website, check out all the amazing stuff. I was poking around on the website a little bit before this conversation today. Some very cool stuff on there. So be sure you take the time to go and check out all the information. But as we wrap up here today, Jason, I'd love to end on this final question, which is this: what is most inspiring to you today?
I mean, the thing that keeps getting me out of bed is, and the reason that I've stayed in the technology space really the majority of my life, is the fact that it never stops. It's always evolving, right? So when I look at things like artificial intelligence, right, and just the sheer amount of possibilities associated with that technology, I mean, many people are calling that the new internet, right? So where is it going to go? Where's it going to go? What's it going to do to make our lives a little bit better and a little bit easier? It's going to be fascinating, I think, here over the next 5 to 10 years. So that is one area that I know I'm excited about.
It is definitely a cool area. It's been incredible to see the velocity of adoption of it and just growth and changes and everything that's happened in, I don't know what, the last 8 months. Like, it's just been exploding. So
Yeah.
I would definitely, resonate with that statement there, and
Yeah, but there needs to
100%
be a
agree.
few boundaries probably, but overall is the sheer possibilities are very exciting.
Yes, absolutely. I'm also excited about that. So, well, Jason, I appreciate you taking the time. It's been absolutely amazing to sit here and have a conversation with you. I know that we probably could spend another hour or so just chatting about different fun things within the business, and I appreciate you being willing to share as much as you have with the audience here today, and tell us a little bit more about the business. So, thank you so much for
Very
taking the
good.
time to
Thank
be
you for
here.
having me, Tanner. Yeah, very good.